Al Jazeera podcasts.
Today, when bombs fall over Israelis and Palestinians, not everyone has a right to safety.
Those who are the most affected are the people in Gaza, because this is precisely what Israel wants. It wants to continue this genocide in the dark.
What does this moment reveal about who is protected and why Gaza keeps slipping from the headlines? I'm Manuel Rápalo, and this is The Take.
My name is Buttu, and I'm a lawyer based in Haifa.
Deanna, welcome back to The Take during these trying times. Recent global headlines have been focused on Iran, they've been focused on Israel, but you've written, "Don't take your eyes off Gaza." Paint the picture for us that you think our audience needs to understand right now.
So let me back up a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
You know, there was a ceasefire agreement that was signed back in January of this year. And the ceasefire agreement was supposed to last. And then on March the 18th, Israel then broke the ceasefire and started bombing Gaza again. And what then happened was the combination of Israel breaking the ceasefire and Israel not allowing aid to get into Gaza, not allowing food and fuel and medicines, etc., led to a lot of international condemnation, including by Europe, which hadn't been condemning Israel up until that date. So as one of the means of diverting attention, Netanyahu decided that now was the time to then go after Iran.
Israel's bombing campaign on Iran was both relentless and systematic. The stated aim was to destroy the country's nuclear program, but also with a view to weakening the Iranian government.
And that was one of the reasons that he attacked Iran, because he was internally losing his coalition. And he was starting to get a lot of criticism for not only breaking the ceasefire, but also starving Palestinians in Gaza. And so sure enough, by bombing Iran, he managed to do a few things. One is he managed to divert attention away from Gaza, and he managed to get his coalition back intact. So today, with the war now over, the war that is between Iran and Israel, we now see that Netanyahu is riding on a political high, and indeed, nobody's paying attention to Gaza. We've seen that just during this period, the 12 days that Israel was bombing Iran, that Israel managed to kill 850 Palestinians, and nobody was paying attention to that.
Deanna, you're speaking to us from Haifa, which is one of the cities that was targeted by Iranian missiles as part of that retaliatory attack by Iran after Israel's attack on Iran. One of the strikes, one of those missiles, it's my understanding, hit near your home.
Yep.
And one of the first people that called you was a friend of yours in Gaza. Can you talk about that moment?
One of the missiles not only hit close to my home, it's actually just meters away from where I'm speaking to you now and where my office is. And it was a message that I got from a friend in Gaza. And this is a person who has been displaced. He's been evacuated 11 times. He's living in a tent. Many of his family members have been killed by Israeli bombs. He's desperate for food. And his was one of the first messages, and his message was, and it still sits with me to this day. His message was, "Are you okay?" And the reason that it still sits with me was because I just kept thinking about him. And I kept thinking about the things that I have. You know, we have sirens here. We have an app that warns us. I have a protected space in my own home, because my home was built after 1990. And by law, any home that was built after 1990 has to have a protected space. There are public bomb shelters in the city of Haifa. And yet here is the person who doesn't even have a home any longer and who's been forced to flee 11 times. And he's asking about me. And that really struck me that it should be the other way around, that all eyes should be on Gaza and not on us in Haifa. But I also want to be clear that my situation is unlike the vast majority of Palestinians. Because Palestinians inside Israel make up about 20% of the population. But in the city of Haifa, we're only 11% of the population. And it's because we're such a small percentage of the population that we get all of the amenities that I was mentioning, the public bomb shelters and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But the vast majority of Palestinians who hold Israeli citizenship don't live in the big cities. They live in their own big cities. And in their own big cities, there aren't public bomb shelters because the state has never built them. And so they're actually quite vulnerable. And then Palestinians who are in the so-called mixed cities like Haifa, etc., there have been a number of reports where Palestinians have been kicked out of these public spaces or not allowed into these public spaces.
Yeah. Well, let's zoom in a little bit. Earlier this week, Al Jazeera reported that the overall Palestinian death toll in this 20-month-long war on Gaza has surpassed 56,000 people. Among those killed are hundreds of people who are seeking aid from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. It's a controversial Israeli, US-backed distribution program. It's the organization that has now taken over aid distribution for Palestinians in Gaza. More than 400 Palestinians have died at these humanitarian aid sites. It's my understanding now, I read this recently, that there's a new term for Palestinian victims called aid seekers, or those awaiting aid. These are the people that have been killed while waiting to be fed.
And it's so sick that you have people who are going to try to get food, a bag of flour, and they're gunned down. And as you said, there's been over 400 of them. And we knew that this was going to happen.
This was the warning. This was the warning from international observers that this would happen. What we've seen since day one, the chaos of people rushing to and visibly being corralled in those images.
So the way that aid delivery is supposed to work is that aid is supposed to go to the people who need it. It's not supposed to be that people who need it come to the aid. And what this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which there's nothing humanitarian about it, has done is that they've only set up for the entirety of the Gaza Strip only 4 distribution sites. And you have to ask yourself, well, where are these 4 distribution sites? These 4 sites coincide precisely with the areas that Israel wants ethnically cleansed. So if you are from the north, you have to walk some 25 kilometers to get to one of these distribution sites. And the whole point is that you're then going to have to make the decision. Do you want aid? Do you want to be able to feed your family? Or do you want to stay on your land? And this is the calculation that they're forcing people to make. And so in that process, in addition to just having the 4 sites, by the way, there used to be 400 sites when it was distributed through the proper UN channels. So compare 400 sites to now 4 sites. When you have it brought down to this small number, along the way, not only is there chaos, but there is deliberate chaos because the Israelis want to make it so that it becomes a treacherous route just to be able to get to that aid. So that you then become corralled into these spaces where the only place that you can be is on a very, very, very small part of the Gaza Strip. As it stands now, 80% of the population of the Gaza Strip is on less than 20% of the land of the Gaza Strip. It shows you how much they have ethnically cleansed the Gaza Strip. And the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has been one of the tools for this ethnic cleansing process, because what they aim to do is to use aid as a function to get people to come down to these distribution sites. And if you don't come down to these distribution sites, then you can be gunned down. And so we see that again, the choice that people are being forced to make is, do you starve? Or do you risk trying to get some type of food and be gunned down there? And in the process, of course, it's not as though the bombs have stopped. The bombs are continuing as we speak.
More with Deanna after the break. So, Deanna, let's back up a little bit, Deanna, and talk a little bit about that disparity, again, that you were mentioning before, because Israel is a country that has been preparing for years. It has long prioritized military preparedness, readiness for war. We can point to the Iron Dome, Israel's missile defense system, bomb shelters in homes. That's a really interesting point that you make right there, because not everyone in Israel is safe.
No.
When the bombs drop. Talk about that. Like, who is safe and who isn't? Who has the right to safety?
Well, the problem with Israel is that they think that they can come up with technological solutions for what are fundamentally political problems. And that's why they come up with these silly things like protective spaces or bomb shelters or Iron Dome or any of that stuff. And if anything has been shown during this past war, this past attack on Iran, is that all of it is for nothing. The Iranian missiles managed to avert Iron Dome, as did the Hezbollah stuff. Not only that, some of the people who were in their bomb shelters actually were killed because the missiles landed right in there on top of them. So none of this is all just a panacea. It's just something that psychologically makes you feel as though you're safe. But if you go down even further and you ask the question as you did, which is a great question of who is safe, I can tell you that who is not safe is Palestinians. And I can explain why. Like, for example, Palestinian homes predate the establishment of the state. My own home in Nazareth was built in 1955. And so therefore it doesn't have a bomb shelter. The entire city of Nazareth doesn't have any public bomb shelters. So as everything was happening with Iran, a city of 80,000 people, 80,000 Palestinians, there were no public bomb shelters. And again, this is deliberate. Places like Tamra, where it ended up being that 4 Palestinians were killed, they don't have any public bomb shelters. There are 37,000 Palestinians who live in the city of Tamra, no public bomb shelters. And yet the Israeli town of Mitzpeh Aviv, which is just about 1.5 kilometers away from them, has a population of 1,100. They have 13 public bomb shelters. So this is all to say that the people who are not safe are Palestinians, and this is deliberate. This is absolutely deliberate.
So how is that? I mean, that's the question then, right? Why is it that Israel has failed to build these public shelters for everyone to be safe if and when the bombs drop? And I can point to a video that I saw recently. It's this video that's been circulating online that shows a group of foreign nationals in Israel being denied entry to a bomb shelter. Mm-hmm. You know, this is happening during the retaliatory attack by Iran, but these are very telling images about who is allowed and who is not allowed to go into these shelters.
It's because Israel's a racist state, and it's gotten to the point where they're actually kind of proud of their racism. So it's not just the people who are. It wasn't just the video that you saw. There've been a number of videos where Palestinian men were denied, where a Palestinian was denied access, including by some of the patients in a hospital shelter. Where there's just been so many of them. It's a racist country, and the reason that they don't build shelters in Palestinian towns is because it's a state that operates on racism. And it doesn't feel that it needs to provide any assistance or any bomb shelters to Palestinian cities and towns. So it's layers of racism that exist in the country. It's a country that's founded on racism. It's a country that's founded on the idea of Jewish supremacy.
Deanna, you recently wrote an article for Zeteo where you titled the article, "It's Not Just Netanyahu. A Lot of Israelis Want Genocide Too." In that article, you argue that genocide fever is how you phrase it, has taken hold of Israeli society. You're pointing to a recent poll that shows a majority opinion in support of Palestinians being expelled from Gaza. I want you to talk about that poll specifically, what that data reveals to you, and also what it's like, given the fact that you live in Haifa, what it's like living with that reality, not just as an analyst or as a lawyer, but as a Palestinian.
Oh, where do I begin? So first I want to be clear in saying that this isn't just about public opinion polls, but this is enshrined in their laws. And it's enshrined in their nation state law, where they say that there are superior rights for people who are Jewish than others. So this isn't just a question of polls, this is a question of actual laws. But I want to get into the polls.
Mm-hmm.
This was a very interesting poll that was conducted not too long ago, I think back in March. And there were a number of figures that are important. The first is that 82% of Jewish Israelis believe in the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from Gaza. And that should be very alarming. But the poll didn't just focus on Palestinians in Gaza, because that's bad enough. But they also focused on Palestinians inside Israel. And 56% supported the ethnic cleansing of people like me. People like me, people who are citizens of the state. And then the fascinating thing is that of those who are under the age of 40, the number jumps even higher.
I was going to ask you about that specifically. It's this idea of young people's views, because there's almost an expectation that when we're talking about younger Israelis, that they may be more progressive or have, stronger empathy for their Palestinian neighbors, but there's even stronger support for ethnic cleansing among younger Israelis.
Absolutely. And that's the scary part. Their views are very much along the lines of just get rid of the Palestinians, period. And there's a reason for that. The only way that they can continue to look at themselves in the mirror is through the dehumanization of Palestinians. Because if they don't, then they have to look at themselves and acknowledge that they committed some major crimes.
How does that number get that high? 82% of Israelis support expelling Palestinians from Gaza. How does that look like in the media, on social media, on TV, in the education sphere? Because these are the ways that type of narrative can become most prevalent. But can you talk about what it actually looks like?
Yeah, I want to talk about two things. So I want to talk about on the side when it comes to Gaza, and then I want to talk about what it's like living here at Haifa. So on the Gaza side of things, it's the result of years of dehumanization. So you just hear constant propaganda, analysts who never speak to people from Gaza or never speak to Palestinians, period. And then you're surrounded by all of their propaganda, day after day after day. And one of the things that's fascinating is the billboards that exist in the country. You see signs like billboards and bumper stickers. One of the most popular bumper stickers is a bumper sticker that reads, "Finish them." Another bumper sticker that's really popular, and actually billboard, is one that says, "Together we will succeed." And there's never a definition for what success looks like. What is success? Flattening Gaza? Bombing 36 hospitals? Starving Palestinian kids? Killing 56,000 Palestinians? Like, what does success look like? But that's the way that you just see this level of propaganda.
Do you see any sign that any of this is changing into a positive direction?
No, and I'll explain why. Especially with the attack on Iran, because you saw all of Western Europe and Canada and the United States go alongside Israel and agreeing with Israel's attack on Iran, Israelis feel vindicated. And the latest polls are showing that 82% of Jewish Israelis supported the attack on Iran. So when they are so empowered and they're told by Western Europe and they're told by America and they're told by Canada that this is the right thing, there's no way that this is ever going to turn into anything positive. They have been told that they can continue to kill, they can continue to starve, they can continue to maim, they can flatten Gaza, they can do whatever they want, and they can ethnically cleanse us because they can do no wrong.
And that's The Take. We really want to hear your thoughts on today's episode. What did you think of the discussion? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading through. See you tomorrow.